Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. Today we're going to be talking all about food history.
Yeah,
And I think when a lot of people think about food history, they think about recipes.
right.
But we're going way beyond that.
Yeah, we're going much deeper.
We're going much deeper. So, how has food been intertwined with societies and cultures, even wars,
Exactly.
and all throughout history?
hmm
And we've got some really cool research to dig into.
We do some really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to uncover basically what people ate from like the earliest humans all the way up to, more modern times.
Yeah.
And we're going to see how that has really influenced everything
Fine.
from health and social status all the way to how civilizations have
Yeah.
progressed and changed.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Early humans,
Why?
before supermarkets, before takeout,
Yeah.
how are they even surviving?
Well, long before agriculture, right?
Yeah.
Early humans, they were hunter-gatherers. So their diet was very much dictated by like what was available,
Right.
what was around them,
And what they could digest.
and what they could digest.
Yeah.
So basically, they were what we call opportunistic omnivores.
Okay.
They ate plants, they ate animals.
So kind of like paleo, but without the Instagram.
Exactly like paleo without like the modern kind of paleo.
Right.
But, it varied.
Yeah.
Like geographically speaking, their menu was pretty different depending on where they were.
Right. So like if you're in a more tropical region.
Exactly. You have a lot more plant-based foods available.
Makes sense.
But if you're in a colder climate,
Yeah.
you had to rely more on animal products.
For the calories and nutrients.
For those calories and nutrients to survive.
To survive the cold.
Especially during those harsh winters.
Wow. It's so interesting how geography just dictated
Yeah.
the culinary landscape.
Absolutely.
Huh.
It was all about what was available.
Yeah. Well, speaking of what was available,
Oh.
our research revealed something kind of shocking about early humans.
So bone analysis has actually shown evidence of cannibalism
Really?
in some prehistoric human remains.
Wow.
Now, the reasons are still being debated, by anthropologists,
Yeah.
but it definitely paints a different picture
Than we
of
think about.
what we think about when we think about our early ancestors.
Right. Definitely not something you'd find in a modern cookbook.
Not at all.
So let's move on
Okay.
to the arrival of agriculture.
All right.
Now that this must have been a major turning point.
Oh, absolutely. Major turning point in human history.
Yeah.
It provided a stable food supply.
Okay.
So, humans began cultivating grains
Right.
like wheat, rice, and maize.
Uh-huh.
And that led to the development of staples that we still enjoy today.
I mean, imagine our world without bread,
I know, right?
pasta tortillas.
Exact.
It's crazy to think about.
It really is remarkable.
And it really highlights the impact of agriculture,
On our diet,
even today.
even today.
So speaking of appreciating food history,
Yeah.
imagine discovering a 2,000-year-old fast food counter.
I know, right?
Wait, are you serious?
Yes.
Ancient fast food.
In Pompeii, archaeologists have uncovered a really well-preserved thermopolium, which is essentially an ancient version of a fast food joint.
Wow. And they had...
And they even found remnants of food in containers.
Really?
Which proves that our desire for quick and easy meals
Is nothing new?
is nothing new.
That is wild.
It really is.
Okay, so now let's move on to ancient civilizations.
Okay.
Like the Greeks and Romans.
All right.
What were their culinary habits like?
Well, back in classical antiquity, they relied primarily on locally sourced foods,
Okay.
fresh and preserved foods.
But-
But what's really interesting is that physicians and philosophers, even back then,
Uh-huh.
recognized the connection between food and well-being.
So they knew food could impact their health.
They understood the importance of a balanced diet
For
for preventing illness and maintaining health.
That's really cool.
It is fascinating.
That even in ancient times,
Yeah.
people were conscious of their diet.
Right. And you had thinkers like Hippocrates,
Yeah.
who's considered the father of medicine,
Right.
really emphasizing food as medicine. And they had a holistic understanding of this
Right.
relationship between diet and overall well-being.
Wow, that's a perspective we could all learn from today.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now let's fast forward a
Okay.
few centuries to the Middle Ages.
All right.
Did food culture change a lot?
So in Western Europe, specifically between the 5th and 15th centuries,
Okay.
food practices remained pretty consistent.
Yeah.
But there were some distinct differences in diet between social classes.
I'm curious what kind of foods were considered staples for different social groups.
Okay, so for the lower classes,
Yeah.
grains and vegetables formed the base of their diet, like
I see.
barley oat and rye bread.
Okay.
Porridges, gruels,
Mhm.
fava beans.
So simple, hearty fare.
Simple, hearty fare.
Yeah.
Meat was a rare luxury.
Right, so not exactly a medieval feast.
Not for the common folk, no.
What about the upper echelons of society?
Okay, so the wealthy,
Yeah.
they enjoyed a much wider variety of foods.
Okay.
As you might expect, reflecting their status.
Right.
Their tables were laid in with fine bread,
Okay.
an assortment of meats.
Okay.
You know, venison, pork, lamb,
Wow.
fish, shellfish, imported spices,
Really?
cheese, fruit.
Quite a contrast.
It was a testament to their wealth and their access to diverse ingredients.
Yeah, but food wasn't just about sustenance
Right.
and social status during the Middle Ages.
Exactly.
The church had a major influence.
Huge influence on eating habits.
Yeah.
So the church played a significant role in shaping food practices
Right.
through religious observances.
Okay.
So numerous fasts were observed throughout the year,
Okay.
especially during Lent.
Right.
And these periods of abstinence were then punctuated by grand feasts.
Oh, wow. So it was like a culinary roller coaster.
It was a cycle of fasting and feasting.
That's fascinating. It really is.
So we've seen how early humans adapted their diets, how agriculture revolutionized food production,
Right.
and how social status and religion played a role
Yeah.
in food culture.
Absolutely.
But this is just the beginning.
Just the beginning.
Stay tuned as we continue our deep dive
Yes.
into food history, exploring how global trade and cultural exchange
It's going to get really interesting.
transformed what we eat.
I can't wait.
I know, me too.
All right.
Stay with us.
So it's really interesting to see how foods like the potato go from, obscurity to becoming these dietary staples and influencing population growth, urbanization,
Absolutely.
even economic trends.
And while we're talking about foods that have really made a mark on the world, we can't forget about rice.
Oh, of course.
I mean, it's been a cornerstone for millennia.
Especially in East and South Asia.
Right.
Rice cultivation has a history spanning over 6,000 years, making it one of the oldest and most essential crops for humanity. It makes you wonder how such a simple grain
I know.
could have such a widespread impact.
It's amazing.
Speaking of journeys,
Yeah.
let's revisit sugar.
Okay.
We talked about its rise to prominence in the 18th century, but its story goes back much further.
Yeah, it does.
And what's really interesting is the word sugar itself originates from the Sanskrit word shakara.
Really?
So sugar's roots can be traced back to India.
Indeed.
Wow.
Initially, people just chewed on sugarcane
Oh, wow.
to enjoy its sweetness.
Okay.
Over time, they developed techniques to crystallize that sweet liquid from sugarcane.
And that led to the sugar we know today.
Precisely.
From chewing on sugarcane
Yeah.
to the vast sugar plantations of the New World.
Exactly.
What a journey.
And a journey marked by both innovation and, unfortunately, exploitation.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Sugar's history is intertwined with these complex social and economic forces,
Absolutely.
including the transatlantic slave trade, which played a tragic role in its production and global distribution. It's a reminder that food history is not always a sweet story.
That's true.
Okay, so let's broaden our perspective here
Okay.
and consider the broader impact of religion on food culture.
Okay.
Major religions like Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, they've all influenced culinary traditions
In profound ways.
in really profound ways.
Religion has really shaped how we perceive and consume food.
Yeah.
And all three of those religions that you mentioned
Uh-huh.
share certain principles when it comes to food,
What?
including this concept of a culinary cosmos,
A culinary cosmos.
where food is seen as part of a larger sacred order.
So it's not just about what you eat,
Right.
but the meaning and symbolism attached to food.
Within a religious context, exactly.
Okay.
These religions also often emphasize hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
associating certain foods and eating practices with different levels of spiritual purity or
Right.
social standing.
Like in Judaism,
Exactly.
the dietary laws of kashrut
Yes.
dictate which foods are permitted and forbidden,
Right, and how they should be prepared and consumed.
like the separation of meat and dairy.
Exactly. It's a fascinating system of rules and rituals
Yeah.
that govern these food practices and reflect these deeply held religious beliefs.
So food becomes a tangible expression of faith
And identity.
and identity.
Exactly. And you see similar themes woven into other religious traditions as well.
Right.
Think about the Christian practice of fasting during Lent.
Mm-hmm.
or the Islamic concept of halal,
Right, which guides Muslims in choosing permissible foods.
according to Islamic law
It's incredible how these practices connect food to spiritual beliefs.
and ethical values.
Yeah. And speaking of fascinating religious connections,
Oh, yeah.
tell us more about the Jesuits
Okay.
and their influence on global food culture.
So the Jesuits played a really significant role in disseminating certain foods
Okay.
and culinary practices around the world. They were instrumental in popularizing chocolate, for instance.
Wait, are you telling me we have the Jesuits to thank for our chocolate obsession?
In a way, yes.
Oh, wow.
So they obtained cacao beans from the Americas,
Okay.
and they introduced Mesoamerican techniques for processing and preparing chocolate
Okay.
to Europe and Southeast Asia.
And that facilitated its global spread.
Exactly.
They were true pioneers of chocolate appreciation.
They really were.
But their culinary influence didn't stop at chocolate.
Not at all.
What else did they do?
They were also involved in the trade of other commodities,
Okay.
like maize cassava,
Mm-hmm.
and even mate, a South American beverage that actually rivaled coffee and tea in popularity at the time.
So the Jesuits were like global food traders.
And trendsetters.
Trendsetters.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Right.
Okay, so now let's shift our focus
Okay.
to another cuisine that has had a profound impact on the world.
Mm-hmm.
Islamic cuisine.
Islamic cuisine is a tapestry of flavors and traditions, shaped by centuries of cultural exchange.
And guided by the principles of halal,
Mm-hmm.
which we touched on earlier.
Yes.
Halal is about more than just dietary restrictions.
It's a comprehensive ethical framework.
That informs food choices for Muslims.
Absolutely. It encompasses consuming food that is pure
Right.
and permissible according to Islamic law,
Right.
considering not only the type of food,
Uh-huh.
but also its source, the method of slaughter,
Okay.
even how it's handled and prepared.
So it's a holistic approach.
That aligns dietary practices with deeply held religious values.
Yeah, and the influence of Islamic cuisine extends far beyond the Muslim world.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, think about the global popularity of dishes like biryani,
Mm-hmm.
kebab falafel.
Right.
These culinary creations have transcended cultural boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and they've become beloved staples.
They're culinary ambassadors,
Yep.
demonstrating the power of food to connect people across cultures.
As we delve further into this exploration of food history,
Yeah.
let's zoom in on specific food items
Okay.
that have left their mark on the world,
Right.
starting with a familiar favorite,
Yes.
the potato.
The potato is a fascinating example of a food
Okay.
that has experienced both adoration and adversity.
Adversity throughout history. We were just
Yeah.
talking about the potato and its journey.
Right. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So while we often associate the potato with, like, comfort food,
Yeah,
culinary staples,
totally.
its introduction to Europe wasn't exactly met with, like, open arms.
Really?
Yeah.
You think a food as versatile and delicious as the potato
I know.
would be an instant hit?
You'd think so, right?
What was the issue?
Well, Europeans were initially suspicious of this
Yeah.
strange New World plant.
Okay.
Some even believed it was poisonous or could cause leprosy.
Wow, talk about a bad first impression.
I know, right?
So how did the potato overcome these perceptions?
Well, it took time,
Yeah.
experimentation,
I
but
know.
eventually people recognized its virtues. Okay.
They realized it was safe to eat.
Right.
Incredibly adaptable, nutritious, and high-yielding.
And it could be grown in a lot of different climates.
Various climates, yes.
And it provided sustenance for everyone.
for both rich and poor.
It's a remarkable story
If
for a humble vegetable that transformed.
diets and societies.
Absolutely. Okay, speaking of transformative foods,
Mm-hmm.
we touched on rice earlier, but I'd love to go a little bit deeper
Okay, sure.
into its significance.
So rice cultivation has been a cornerstone of civilization for millennia, particularly in Asia.
Yeah,
It's a staple food for billions of people.
right. And its impact goes way beyond just sustenance.
Absolutely. It's intertwined with cultural traditions,
Uh-huh.
religious ceremonies, even economic systems.
One of the most fascinating things I think about rice is the diversity.
Oh, the diversity is incredible.
Oh, the varieties.
There are thousands of different types of rice,
Thousands.
each with its own distinct flavor, texture, and culinary application. I knew there were different types like long grain, short grain, brown rice,
Right.
but thousands.
Thousands.
That's mind-boggling.
It's amazing.
And that's not just a culinary curiosity.
Right.
That's crucial for maintaining food security.
It is. Having a wide range of rice varieties ensures resilience against pests, diseases, and changing environmental conditions.
So rice biodiversity is like a safeguard
Exactly.
against potential food shortages.
It's a reminder that preserving crop diversity is essential for a sustainable food future.
So as we kind of wrap up our exploration of food history, I can't help but wonder, what's next?
What lies ahead?
Yeah. What will the next chapter in food history look like?
That is the question, isn't it?
I mean, we've traveled through time.
We have.
Ancient diets, medieval feasts.
Global exchange of foods.
Yeah. But the future of food is maybe the most intriguing chapter.
It really is. So we're at a critical juncture in food history.
Okay.
You know, we're facing challenges like climate change, population growth, resource scarcity.
Yeah.
And that's putting immense pressure on our food systems.
It seems like the focus is shifting, from just discovering new foods or reviving old recipes to how can we make sure there's enough food?
How can we sustainably feed a growing global population?
In the face of all these unprecedented challenges.
Exactly. We need innovative and collaborative solutions to transform how we produce, distribute, and consume food.
I mean, are there any advancements on the horizon that
There are promising advancements in
Okay.
areas like vertical farming,
Vertical farming,
lab-grown meat,
lab-grown meat.
personalized nutrition.
Those all sound so futuristic.
I know they sound like something out of a science fiction novel.
Vertical farms and skyscrapers.
I know.
Meat cultivated in labs.
It's amazing.
Diets tailored to our DNA.
It's incredible to think about the possibilities.
And these have the potential to revolutionize
Food production and consumption.
and make it more efficient, sustainable, and equitable.
That's the goal.
It sounds like the future of food is going to be a combination of cutting-edge technology and a return to more traditional sustainable practices.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance.
Between embracing new technologies and respecting the wisdom of traditional food ways.
Absolutely.
And ultimately recognizing that food is not just a commodity.
It's a fundamental human right.
It's been an amazing journey exploring food history.
It has.
We've seen how it shaped our past.
And now it's our turn to shape its future.
Absolutely. So as you savor your next meal,
take a moment to appreciate the complex history behind it.
And consider how your food choices
can contribute to a more sustainable and equitable food future.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into food history.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, happy eating.